Hello and welcome to Holy Week services at First Presbyterian Church, Lawrence. Today we will be using a modified version of a service written by Sarah Are from a Sanctified Art, and you can find some resources at sanctifiedart.org. Today our worship is special because it is true that Holy Week is unlike any week in the Christian calendar. On Sunday, we celebrated Jesus' joyous entry into Jerusalem, and today we turn to the events that followed, walking through the moments that led up to Jesus' arrest. We do this as if walking and journeying day by day, because just like our lives, Holy Week happened day by day. In our service, we will incorporate the tradition of Midrash. Midrash is an ancient Jewish tradition that weaves together the art of storytelling and the truth of Scripture, inviting us to imagine and to wonder about the details that exist between the lines. Today you will hear from 5 voices: a woman who witnessed Jesus flip the tables in the temple, a Pharisee, the woman with the alabaster jar who anointed Jesus' feet in Bethany, Judas, and one of the disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus was arrested. As you hear these stories read aloud, we invite you to lean in, imagine yourself there, feel the truth of this narrative, for it was a holy week and it was a hard week. Let us begin. As we prepare our hearts to hear God's word creatively proclaimed, please join me in our call to worship. On that Palm Sunday so many years ago, the people saw Jesus and asked, "Who is this?" In worship, we respond. In worship, we declare, Jesus is a miracle worker and healer. Jesus is a teacher and a preacher. Jesus is our light in the darkness. Jesus is our source of love. Jesus is our path in the wilderness. Come, let us worship God. Who is this?
I heard he was a carpenter's son.
I heard he was from Nazareth.
Can anything good come out of Nazareth?
Who is this?
I heard he knew John the Baptist.
I heard he was related to John the Baptist.
I heard he can heal people.
Who is he?
I heard he talks to Gentiles
I heard he talks to children
and women.
and tax collectors.
Seriously, who is this?
I heard he's the son of David.
I heard he's the Son of Man.
I heard he's the one we've been waiting for.
I heard he was born in a stable.
I don't know who he is, but I've heard he's gracious and kind.
I heard he fed 5,000.
I heard he survived the wilderness.
I heard he helped the blind man see.
Do you think he sees me?
I heard he walked on water. Is that even possible?
I heard he can save us.
I heard he can save all of us.
Who is this?
Who is this? Matthew 21, verse 12. Then Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who were selling and buying in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. He said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers."
I come here every Monday morning. It has always been like this, at least for as long as I can remember. My parents talk about a time when this room used to be packed with people here to pray and hear the Torah every week. They talk about those days like they were the glory days. If only we could get back to that. Now the temple is primarily a marketplace. I come here every week for the farmer's market to buy eggs and figs and food for my family. And they have the best bread. I've never felt guilty for that because I pray on my own and we still celebrate Passover. So is it really that big of a deal? I used to think not, but that changed the day Jesus showed up. I don't know that I will ever forget that day. I had just bartered with Samuel down the street to get 2 fresh fish for my kids. That's when I heard the sound. It was so loud. A crash, a splintering. For a brief moment, I thought God might be tearing open the walls for the temple and climbing inside. I turned around, hands full of fish, to see the money changers' tables turned over and the doves flapping wildly in their cages. Coins slowly rolled their way across the holiest of holies, and everyone froze. I've never heard silence so loud. Jesus paused and looked at the room. Quietly, he said, "My house is to be called a house of prayer. Prayer for all nations." In the quiet, I felt myself hiding the 2 fish in my hands behind my back like Adam and Eve hid behind leaves, wishing the coins in my hands could disappear. And then, as quickly as he arrived, he turned and left. I can't be sure, but it looked like there might have been a tear running down his cheek. And for just a second, I wondered to myself, maybe, just maybe, that sound really was God tearing open the walls of the temple and climbing inside. Who is he, you ask? I'm not sure, but he's not like me. He's faithful. He's honest. There was nothing hiding behind his back. Have any of you ever felt that kind of shame? Have any of you ever wanted to hide something from God?
A reading from Matthew 21, verse 23. When he entered the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to Jesus as he was teaching, and they said to him, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?"
Do you know how many laws there are in the Torah? There's 613. You know how I know that? Because I've spent my entire youth memorizing them, hours upon hours of repetition and study. And after I mastered those, I went on to memorize the entire Torah. For those of you that don't know, that's the first 5 books of the Bible, by the way. And after I spent all that time sitting at the foot of my teacher, I did that one day so I too could teach. That's what faithfulness, sacrifice, and a life of service looks like. Or at least that's what I was taught. I've talked to every scribe and every priest in the land, and nobody knows who taught this Jesus. No one raised him to teach. No one knows if he even passed his Torah exam. Where does he get his authority? And why are people listening to him? It blows me away. His teachings are unorthodox. He healed on the Sabbath. He talked to Samaritans. He disregards our societal lines. He befriends women and lepers. Does he even know how many rules he's breaking? I just don't understand. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. I studied for so long and nothing prepared me for this. Who is he, you ask? He's a radical, a heretic, a rebel, a mystery.
Matthew 26, verse 6. Now while Jesus was at Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when the disciples saw it, they were angry and said, "Why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum, and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her."
It was Wednesday. I heard he was coming to Bethany. People talk about stuff like that. People also talk when you break open a bottle of perfume to anoint someone in a crowd. I learned that the hard way. In a few years, they may forget my name, but I bet they'll remember what I did. I am the woman who anointed Jesus, and it remains one of the moments in my life that I am most proud of. Jesus was at Simon's house. He often went there when he was in the city, and I knew that. We all knew that because we could see them packed in there. It's hard to miss 12 people packed into a room. So before the sun fell, I grabbed my jar of perfume, the only item of wealth I owned, and walked to Simon's. I had begged and saved for years to afford that jar of perfume. It was my backup plan, my safety net for when I could no longer work, so I kept it hidden in the cupboard of my house. The whole way to Simon's house, I clutched that jar like a mother holds a baby, terrified that it might slip from my hands too soon, that I might lose the only gift I had to give, accidentally anointing the dirt at my feet instead of the man who had healed so many. It wasn't until I walked through the door and saw Jesus sitting there that I was able to release my grip on the jar. I had made it. I had my gift, and this was the moment. The smell was unbelievable, sweet like milk and honey, but even stronger than fresh baked bread. I knew when I cracked that jar open, it would be overpowering. It would send people into the street, but I had to do it. People criticized me for wasting that perfume, but they don't know the whole story. They don't know what it meant to be seen and called by name. Jesus pulled me out of the wilderness of my own isolation. They have no idea the healing that Jesus offered me, and they probably could never understand what I would give to do it all over again. I mean, how do you put a price tag on life, on a full and abundant life? I don't need everyone to understand. I just needed him to understand. He gave me the gift of new life, so in return, I gave him the only thing I had. Who is this man, you ask? He was grace embodied and love let loose, and I will never be the same.
Matthew 26, verse 14. Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, Judas began to look for an opportunity to betray Jesus.
Could he really have been the Messiah, the Son of God? Could he really be the one that God would send to redeem the world? Really? There were days I was convinced he was, like the day he fed 5,000 people. I still can't figure out how he did it, but I was there, and people ate their fill. Or the night he told Peter to walk to him on the water. I could never begin to tell you how that happened, but I was there. It felt real. But there were other days I wasn't so sure, like the day he sent us out 2 by 2 to heal people. Did he really expect us to be able to do what he did? Or the days he rebuked the Pharisees? Could the Son of God really be that hard on people, especially the leaders of the law? I wanted to believe he was the Messiah. I really did. I wanted to give everything I had, but something deep within me wasn't settled. I was beginning to lose sleep over it, and the Pharisees began whispering in my ear. What if he wasn't all that he said he was? What if everything I saw could be explained? What if I had risked my life only to find out he was just another great teacher among many? It was that unsettled voice deep within me that told me to do it. That small voice was more powerful than my will, my thoughts, and my faith. It ruled me, and I followed it. Most people say I betrayed him for the money, but that would be too simple. I handed him over because I couldn't know who he was for certain. There is no black and white, no 100% proof when it comes to God. Doubt is an untamed wilderness of the mind, and that shade of gray ate at me. Who was that man, you ask? If you would have asked me last week, I would have told you I'm not entirely sure. Ask me again on Sunday, and my answer will have changed.
Matthew 26, verse 36. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane. He said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So, could you not have stayed awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray, that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away for the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass until I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hand of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people.
It all happened so fast. It was later than I had realized, and sleep was clinging to me like a fog I couldn't shake. I heard the crowd arrive in my dreams. At first, I thought it was a crowd of people wanting Jesus to heal them. I thought selfishly to myself for just a moment, how in the world did they find us here? That's when I started to wake up. I realized the crowd didn't sound right. It wasn't people praising Jesus or begging for mercy. It was too quiet, far too quiet for that, and in the quiet, I could hear the clink of swords in sheaths. I frantically pulled myself from sleep, shaking awake my brothers and trying to stand up quickly. I saw Judas at the front of the crowd. What is he doing here? I thought. Maybe things will be okay after all, I thought. But I was wrong. In a split second, my whole world fell apart around me. I went from knowing my way, knowing my purpose, and knowing my plans to standing in the wilderness alone. It happened as quickly as a summer thunderstorm and as slowly as the change in seasons. The crowd with clubs and swords were taking Jesus. They were taking him away, and he was not fighting it. Maybe if I had stayed awake like he had asked me, then this wouldn't have happened. Maybe if we had left Jerusalem and gone back to Bethany, this wouldn't have happened. What am I supposed to tell my family? The man I have seen heal the sick and walk on water has been arrested, and the angels didn't stop it. Who is this man, you ask? He's not a criminal, that's for sure. It all happened so fast.
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this that caused the Lord of bliss to bear the heavy cross for my soul, to bear the heavy cross for my soul. To God and to the Lamb I will sing, to God and to the Lamb I will sing. To God and to the Lamb, who is the great I am, while millions join the theme, I will sing, while millions join the theme, I will sing. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing on. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing on. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing and joyful be. And through eternity, I'll sing on, and through eternity, I'll sing on.
Who is he?
On Sunday, he was everything, the center of the parade, the center of our attention. His arrival was holy and unexpected and beautiful.
On Monday, he turned the world upside down. He flipped the tables while he flipped the script.
On Tuesday, he was a teacher, but he wasn't like other teachers. He sat and they sat. He spoke and they listened. What they don't know is he hadn't earned his place. Who is he?
On Wednesday, he was nothing more than a man worth 30 pieces of silver.
On Thursday, he was the body broken for us, the blood shed for us.
On Thursday, he was betrayed. He was arrested. He was treated like a convict. On Thursday, he was alone, and we were asleep.
Who is he? Friends, this is the question of Holy Week, and in truth, it's the question of our entire lives. In order to answer this question, we have to walk through all of the Holy Week, through the wilderness of betrayal and of death, the wilderness of the tomb, and the strangeness of surprise endings. We hope you journey with Christ. And as we go, may the God who created heaven and earth, whom death could not contain, who lives to both disturb and heal us, send us forth to share the good news of God's love this day and every day.